Corbin Carrol continues to crush, Merrill the Mainstay murks the Miami Marlins, and Geraldo Perdomo is basically Barry Bonds in disguise. Plus, we talk about how much alliteration is too much in a podcast intro. All this and more coming up on the T-Bags Podcast.
Perdomo makes the play.
And a high fly ball. No doubt about this. Home run Marte.
They're going to send them all the way around. Corbin Carrol with an inside the park answer back.
I'm Ivan Melendez.
Luis Gonzalez.
I'm Tori Lavello, and you're listening to the T-Bags Podcast.
T-Bags Podcast.
T-Bags Podcast.
Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the T-Bags Podcast, where we bring you all the hottest Arizona Diamondbacks tea and talk. We're proud to be Arizona's #1 baseball and beverage podcast. And today we are talking the D-backs result in Miami, giving us plenty to celebrate. And today we're breaking down the 3-game sweep, game by game, catching you up with everything that's happened over this middle of the week 3-game series, including the ultra UK-friendly start time today in Game 3, 5 o'clock start. You know, get some dinner in, chill out, crash on the couch, watch some Diamondbacks baseball. I don't get to do that very often here in London, so praise the Lord for a 5 o'clock start time. It wasn't a 5 o'clock start time, however, in Game 1. Let's get started right into your summaries. Basically, all you need to know from Game 1. Corbin extended his hit streak. Perdomo tied for 5th all-time in on-base streak in franchise history and became, at the time, the second most valuable shortstop in baseball behind only Mookie Betts in the OPS category. On the mound, Merrill Kelly put up 6 quality innings. And another win. Merrill Kelly doing pretty good right now. You know, he's, I think, 3-1 now on the year, which is pretty good for a starting pitcher. I think that puts him same record as Brandon Pfaadt, and made 6 in a row quality starts for Diamondbacks pitchers, which is the first time since 2019 that's happened, apparently. That's a stat that's been floating around on the broadcasts, which, you know, as good as this pitching rotation is, and we kind of knew it was going to be that at the start of the season, I think this more tells us just how entrenched mediocre pitching has been in the Diamondbacks mindset sometimes. So the fact that they're breaking out for it is, yeah, really encouraging. Anything else that's really encouraging? Oh, yeah, maybe the fact that Corbin Carrol can hit high fastballs now. You know, the one thing that people were using against him last year, and potentially the reason why he was slumping so hard at the start of last season, the fact that, you know, people figured out they could just throw a high fastball to him. Yeah, not anymore, guys. The rest of the league is definitely worried about that. Corbin crushed a fastball up to the second deck of, I've forgotten the name of the Miami Marlins ballpark. I was literally just watching a game from there 10 minutes before starting this recording. He crushed a second decker for a grand slam in the 6th inning of Game 1 against the Miami Marlins. That makes it 6 for the season, second in the big leagues, and makes him part of a very exclusive club, and that is players who have hit a grand slam in 2023, 2024, and 2025. I'm not going to give you out any prizes for guessing who the other member of that club is. If you guess Shohei Ohtani, you're wrong. It's Aaron Judge, but that's not exactly trivia either. The stats on that homer, it went 434 feet with a 108 mile per hour exit velocity, and it was described by many, including Steve Gilbert, as, quote, MVP caliber. So, yeah, too early to be saying MVP shouts? No, definitely not, because 2 weeks ago I said Pavin Smith was going to win Most Valuable Player. We'll get onto that in a minute. But Corbin Carrol seriously making a name for himself, and yeah, we're going to get on to reviewing Game 3 in a bit, but there was significant stats that were getting racked up there too. Super hot year for Corbin, starting the year exactly the way we were all hoping he would be after making those mechanical adjustments to his swing during spring. And that super hot start was finally mirrored by the Diamondbacks themselves in one of the games, finally getting some early runs in. And this happened again in Game 2. Brandon Pfaadt had himself a great day on the mound, battling with Marlins' Max Meyer. I did say there was going to be a lot of alliteration in this one. But yeah, man, oh man, that sweeper of Brandon's was working really nicely in to get some strikeouts. And he was very comfortable, very relaxed on the mound, inducing the, ground outs when he needed to, strikeouts where he had to. He did let Matt Mervis get a hold of one in the 4th inning, but he's really been the Marlins' only really solid, consistent hitter. And, 6 strikeouts in 5.2 innings for Brandon Pfaadt fortunately did get him some run support, so we didn't really have to worry about Mervis going on a one-man mission against the Diamondbacks. Home runs coming in that one. Josh Naylor, Pavin Smith, both heading out the yard to center field. Tim Tower got their first big league homer. Lourdes Gurriel adding a third dose of Pina power for the year. And, the man with the purple hair put a couple of recent defensive woes behind him to run down the final out of the night, making a smart catch in shallow left. So, yeah, game 2, I'm not going to say it was like business as usual, standard processional stuff, because this is a major league game of baseball, but didn't really trouble the Diamondbacks too much yesterday. It sort of kept that momentum rolling a little bit overnight. It's always weird because it's a flyaway day for the Diamondbacks, so they started very early today in Miami, hence the relatively normal start time as opposed to a 2:10 a.m. first pitch that I get on some of the West Coast games here in London. So yeah, it started very early, obviously flying out to Chicago. So it was an early game for game 3, and it started off in, typical Diamondbacks cause chaos fashion, which I'm so happy to be able to say we're causing chaos on the bases again. Corbin Carrol struck out on a wild pitch, reached first base safely on that after a swing and miss, dropped third strike, stole second, stole third. Pavin got knocked in by a sacrifice fly from Geraldo Perdomo. Pavin Smith launched another homer to go back-to-back with 13 hits in 10 games. Amazing. Love to see it. And 6 of those have been for extra bases as the Ginger Ninja continued to tear in Miami. And, he always goes well whenever he's in Miami. I feel like he's got family down there that are always in attendance when he's playing at Marlins Stadium. Yeah, Pavin Smith, MVP shouts, got to be flying left and right. So many people now, I think, are jumping on the Pavin Smith hype train, and I wasn't exactly the nicest to Pavin in history on this show, but I got to say that fairly early this year, I was getting on the Pavin Smith hype train. So I'm not, and I promise I'm not a total poser. There are going to be people who are jumping on this Pavin Smith hype train after I did. So I promise I'm not a complete glory hunter. I'm not just desperately trying to curry favor with the Diamondbacks fans. Well, I'm not right now. Anyway, the Pavin Smith thing isn't about that. I'll do other things to make sure you guys all like me. Anyway, starting on the mound for Game 3 of this series against the Miami Marlins was Eduardo Rodriguez, coming off of a tied career high 12 strikeouts in his last game and not earning the win. He was 0-2 coming into today. But Erod, up and down day, still did pretty well. Stranded 2 on base in both the first and the second innings after giving up a run, which, wasn't bad considering that the run came in after an E4 from Tim Tower cost the Diamondbacks a potential double play. So there's nothing super concerning there. Tim's defense will improve, obviously, as he gets more apps in the major leagues. He's, I think, something like the Diamondbacks number 25 prospect or something, despite the fact he's a little bit older than some of the guys on that prospect list. So an error is going to happen. It was just as he was trying to make a double play, stepping on second, transferring the ball from the glove to the hand to make the throw, and he just dropped it on that. This was then challenged by the Marlins. It was basically ruled that he didn't have the ball under control when he stepped on second anyway, so not only was it not a double play, it wasn't even an out there either. But that'll come with time, I think. And it's another one of those days where Erod had a pretty solid start but didn't quite get the defense behind him. He was dealing. He got 4 strikeouts in a row at one point, struck out 5 of his first 8, and definitely wasn't too bad. But he'd been pretty solid going 0-2 into today, despite what his record might suggest. But today he made it through just under 9 innings, 9 strikeouts, no walks, gave up 10 hits, 3 runs, but only one of those was an earned run. And but the talking point is he could have used a little bit more help from his defense. On the Diamondbacks broadcast today, they kind of mentioned, Erod's a guy who likes to work fast, and if you've got a guy that likes to work fast on the mound for your team, if you as a defender have that happening for you, you got to be a bit more on your toes. You got to be aware of things, be switched on, all the time, keep pace, be alert. That's not really been the case for any of Erod's starts this year. The defense today was Geraldo Perdomo plus everybody else, and Perdomo very much carried the defense on his back. The approach from Erod was a bit different than what we're used to seeing from him today, though. And anybody who was watching, you'd have noticed. Erod's main moneymaker pitch usually is that change-up that he likes to go to. But we didn't see very much of it today. And when we did, it was getting hit, so he switched up a little bit. He threw sinkers, cutters, and fastballs for the vast majority. And it was maybe a shift to play it a bit close to the wind, but it is more effective if it works, and it was definitely working today. Time for our first tea break. On the other side of things, Corbin Carrol kept that on-base streak going with a 2-out knock, scoring Tim Tower. And once again, we're seeing it. The chaos is back. Corbin Carrol himself stealing 3 out of the Diamondbacks' 6 bases today. Cause chaos, running wild. We love to see it. I love that vibe, and this is how the Diamondbacks should play baseball. We're good at playing baseball this way. It was really strong base running all round from the Diamondbacks today. I don't know if anybody was caught out running today for the Diamondbacks. Always good to see that. 5 stolen bases in less than 4 innings against the Marlins starting pitcher Cabrera. It's back to the way we know this team plays its best baseball. Tim Tower got one. Pavin Smith got one. I think Alek Thomas got one as well. Alek Thomas, doing well. I know that Jake McCarthy is kind of recovering from that hard hit by pitch that took him just on the top of the wrist, on the back of his hand, and he's recovering from that. But Alek Thomas very much made a statement of why he should remain as the starting center fielder even when Jake McCarthy comes back. I know McCarthy was in a bit of a slump, had a hitless streak, then broke that. But Alek Thomas did everything that could have been asked of him today. I think perhaps he's the stronger base runner of the two as well. He gets good jumps, got good running speed once he gets up and running. So yeah, little addendum note. Shout out to Alek Thomas. We know he can be a very good guy in a lot of different spots. He can play left, he can play right, he can play center. Doesn't always find the power that we know he can generate, but today he did exactly what was asked of him. I'm expecting to see him probably start maybe 2 out of 3 games against the Cubs, depending on how fit Jake McCarthy is. We all know how Torey Lovello is with trying to get guys, as many at-bats as possible when they're recovering from injury, so he may be keen to get Jake McCarthy back in there, but I don't know the numbers side by side when it comes to how well Jake McCarthy versus Alek Thomas have previously played against the Chicago Cubs, but I'm expecting to see Alek Thomas probably preferred in this one just because of how he is on form, and he's got a little bit of heat into his bat now, good solid glove, good base running, so I think he'll probably get the call. Speaking of guys who got a bit of a hot bat, Josh Naylor got into the Marlins bullpen pitcher Enriquez today. Going into today, Enriquez had a 0.80 ERA, and yeah, you're not hearing that wrong. He was playing very well, and that's impressive in a side that can sometimes be as streaky as the Marlins are. But Josh Naylor got the better of him, drilled an inside of the plate cutter up onto the foul pole to kick off the 5th inning. It was a huge bomb. It wasn't even like, it hit the foul pole on the bit that just extends off of the base of the wall at the foul pole. No, he got this high in the air. I know Marlins Stadium's kind of right field is a little shallower than some places. It's not like a Yankee Stadium right field, but it's still fairly. But man, Josh Naylor got into one today, and that's good to see. I think this is the 3rd time in his career he's hit three home runs in 3 games back to back like that, and long may it continue. We were saying, Josh Naylor, we're sacrificing Christian Walker's defense at first base, but he should be a fairly similar productivity when it comes to being a power hitter over at first. We hadn't really seen that too much this season in the first couple of series, but Josh Naylor looks like he's got that pretty much figured out now. And yeah, that was all right and high, but nothing is ever that simple for the Diamondbacks. Ryan Thompson came out of the bullpen to relieve Eduardo Rodriguez, loaded the bases in the 7th. Well, hey, we love to see it. Ryan Thompson, not necessarily the most reliable guy in the Diamondbacks bullpen, But giving up that much is kind of a little disappointing. It got to the point where, bases loaded, that you could feel the rally starting to come from the Marlins. You didn't want to deal too much of that, so you need to bring in a higher leverage guy. This was 2 days in a row. Torey Lovullo had gone to his high leverage guys. We saw Shelby Miller yesterday, so it was Justin Martinez who was called upon to escape the inning and walked in 1 run before, so that made it 6-4 before he got the K on the 102.8 mile an hour fastball to get that third out of that inning. And J-Mart got one pretty domineering strikeout, but he needed that strikeout to come in much sooner because he did walk in a run off of a bases loaded situation, which isn't great. I would like to see J-Mart not do that again if he's put into a situation like that. I don't know how many times this year we're going to put J-Mart in when the bases are already loaded, but it shows the certain level of trust that Torey Lovullo has in Justin Martinez to say, hey, yeah, you're the guy, you're getting the rock out of the pen to deal with that whole mess. Ryan Thompson, go apologize to Justin Martinez right now because you should not be messing up that badly. If you're a major league pitcher and you're being paid major league pitcher money, you should not be mucking around loading bases like that. There are guys who are going to be coming up from either the injury list or from AAA who will want your spot in that bullpen. Kendall Graveman is a name that's been floated around, and there are some guys who will probably come out of this bullpen before Torey Lovullo likes to take Ryan Thompson out. Joe Manoplite is a name that comes to mind. Sorry, Joe, I know you're an all-star in 22, 23, 22? I think 22. But yeah, it's maybe time to go for Joe Manoplite. I'm sorry, I've been one of your biggest supporters, but it's not been great for him because we have guys like Jalen Beeks who was called upon today, and he's been pretty solid so far. That acquisition from the Colorado Rockies, and he did get the Diamondbacks lead safely into the 9th with 3 straight strikeouts after giving up a leadoff walk, and it really wasn't a leadoff walk. That should have been quite easily an out, and also that second strikeout he got as well could have come 3 pitches earlier because there were some real questionable ball calls from the home plate umpire. Seriously, like today, if you were watching, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was such a small strike zone. I honestly, you could have probably put like a sheet of A4 paper or something into that strike zone just to illustrate the point, and Beeks would have been taking out like half chunks of that sheet of paper, and these things weren't being called strikes. And I'm gonna definitely be checking on the @ump scorecards account over on X/Twitter to see exactly how much leverage we lost from some of those dodgy calls on painting the edges there. Beeks is a guy who can paint the edges. He can throw that like relaxed gas is what it was called on the broadcast today down the middle as well when he wants it to be. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good definition of it, actually, now I'm thinking about the way he keeps his arm very close into his body throughout most of his stance and his windup, and then it just releases it, and it doesn't look like he's like fully putting every ounce of his body into the pitch like Tim Lincecum style or anything like that. Jalen Beeks is just keeping things simple, minimizing the movement, and just generating that power without exerting himself too much. And that's very different to the way the Diamondbacks bullpen functions. You've got some really interesting mechanics from like Ryan Thompson, who's Byung-Hyun Kim's #1 fan, to AJ Puck, who was called upon to get the save, and we'll talk about him in a second. And yeah, but Jalen Beeks, imagine facing him. It's sort of similar to why a lot of people thought Paul Sewald did so well for his first year when he was here, because his mechanics were so different from the other guys we were calling upon in high leverage relief situations in 2023. It was, well, we're not going to talk about Miguel Castro because he had his own particular thing, but the guys like Luis Frias, Kevin Ginkel, Andrew Solfrank, who seems to have disappeared into the ether, never to be seen again after that gambling suspension. I think he is eligible to be back now, isn't he? Because he had an interestingly good breakout year in the 2023 postseason. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up at some point. If Andrew Solfrank is available. Okay, so looking it up here, Andrew Solfrank. So his ban came in on, according to AZ Snake Pit, the 4th of June 2024. So if we're recording this April, he's still got a couple of months left to serve on his ban, and he had only made 2 appearances last year when that ban came in. Gave up 4 earned runs with a 36.00 ERA. So perhaps I'm overhyping Andrew Solfrank just a little bit. Let's not include him in this conversation any further. But yeah, there's going to be plenty of guys who might see some time in the Diamondbacks bullpen this year. Like, you have people like Yilba Diaz, Yumin Lin on the prospects list who, yeah, probably longer term will be viewed as starters. But if they keep doing what they're doing at AAA levels at the moment, they're going to be starting to be considered for some interesting opportunities. And it's hard to say, yeah, we need another long inning relief guy, because Ryan Nelson has absolutely been locking down that role. But what's going to happen when, Dre Jameson is even more ready to be called up than he already is? The guy's throwing absolute fire right now. So, yeah, there's going to be some stiff competition, but probably not for AJ Puck's role, although AJ Puck did make it a bit more difficult than it needed to be today. He was called up to get the save in the 9th inning, and yeah, gave up a leadoff double. Not great. Obviously, he's an ex-Miami Marlins, so maybe the guys at the Marlins had a bit more of a read on him than we might have expected. But then he got the next 2 with fair amount of ease, actually, to be fair to him. He does throw, a 96, 97 fastball, which is always good when you can just throw it inside of a guy and make him work for it. And then Marlins' last man standing was Xavier Edwards, who today was 2-4, and interestingly was the only guy on the Marlins roster that I noticed anyway who was using a torpedo bat. So I'm not sure if we're adopting those anytime soon on the Diamondbacks. I haven't seen any yet, but he seemed to have a pretty good day using them, and I'd say probably was the best player for the Marlins today. He very much, as the leadoff guy, had a bit of an aura about him. Diamondbacks were a bit uneasy pitching to him. It was a long battle. It was a 9-pitch battle in the end between Puck and Edwards. Puck pretty much constantly throwing the fastball. I think he threw one slider in there, but it was just fastball after fastball after fastball. Very reminiscent of a Geraldo Perdomo kind of at bat. Just fighting things off, taking pitches. Did get up to a full count. Really didn't need that extra stress. That's probably taken 5 minutes off my life on its own. Thanks for that, AJ Puck. But either way, he did eventually get the save. Diamondbacks made it a little less comfortable than it needed to be. But Erod finally got in the win column, and we did what some people might have expected. I wasn't going to say it in the last episode because I didn't want to jinx it, but yes, we did sweep the Marlins. Do you want an interesting stat? Because I have an interesting stat for you. In this series against the Miami Marlins, who, probably aren't going to have the best season compared to, pretty much everybody aside from Colorado in the NL West this year, at no point in this series have the Diamondbacks trailed the Marlins. That was one that came up on the broadcast today as well, that I thought, I've got to write that down. That's an interesting thing to talk about. And that is systematically so much better of a stat to have and to be carrying into a series in Chicago than the fact that we finally managed to not give up a bunch of runs in the first inning. We didn't have to rely on the answer backs in a 7th, 8th, 9th inning rally, walk-off, whatever. We don't need to be dicking around winning baseball games in complicated ways. Torey Lovullo says, just for once, he'd like to have a day where his team just goes out and wins a baseball game and he doesn't have to stress out too much. Yeah, of course you would, Torey. Us as fans, we want that too. Unfortunately, Torey, it's your job to make sure that happens. And even today, you made it a little more complicated than it needed to be. Thanks, Ryan Thompson. But yeah, not trailing. We don't have to come back from a losing position to win a series. That's good. We need to do more of that. And given the fact that some more silly errors have been made, there was one high throw from Eugenio Suarez at third, right the way across the diamond, that sailed high over Pavin Smith's head at first when it could have been an easy out. sort of made up for that with the final out of the game, which had my heart in my mouth a little more than it needed to. But yeah, we've got to sort out the defense, because it seems like something about this Diamondbacks defense, specifically when Erod is on the mound, but it's also kind of more in general. We've seen a couple errors. One happened on a Zach Gallen start. We've seen obviously that costly miscommunication between Josh Naylor and Corbin Burns in New York. We do need to start stamping out some of these errors in this Diamondbacks defense if we are going to try and get to the kind of levels that a lot of people are expecting in this thing. I'm starting to sound like a broken record. I've said this like 2 weeks in a row now. Stop mucking around with it. You paid however many millions of dollars, guys. Get the fundamentals right. I feel like I'm coaching Little League over here by having to say this again. And ultimately, despite the fact that, yes, it's the big three. It's Burns, Gallen, and Kelly up for the next 3 games in Chicago, which, yeah, is our main 3 guys pitching. I'm a little concerned because the Cubs are not the Marlins. The Cubs obviously aren't the most amazing team in the world, but they have some good players. Make no mistake about that. The Cubs have some good players. They're currently leading the NL Central. They're 12-9. Currently on an L1 streak as I'm recording this right now, and they're 5-5 in their last 10. Yeah, they didn't play today, as far as I can see on the calendar. They just lost their last game yesterday, 4-2, in San Diego. So they're going to want revenge on the division here, and it's looking like it's going to be Corbin Burns against Colin Ray in Game 1. Game 2 is going to be Zach Gallen versus Ben Brown, and Game 3 is going to be Merrill Kelly against this guy, Jameson Taillon, who, yeah, is pretty good. So, yeah, if the Diamondbacks aren't on their best, I feel like the Cubs are going to punish us. Despite the fact that, yeah, we've won the same amount of games this year, and the Cubs have played 2 less games, which means that we've lost 2 less games than the Cubs have. But, you know, we've got Corbin Burns, who's going to be going into this game 0-1, still hasn't got his first win in the Diamondbacks jersey with a 5.28 ERA against Ray, who's got a 1.00 ERA. You know, that's don't like that. Got a weird gut feeling about that. I'm not going to jinx it, so I'm not going to say any more about it. But yeah, we need to play better than we did against the Marlins. We can't take it easy like we did against the Marlins. And no shade on Miami, but you know, the fans sort of voted with their feet when it comes to how good the Miami Marlins as a franchise is for baseball. It doesn't feel like there were very many people there at all at the game today. And yeah, that sucks, but it's more of an indicator of how good the team is versus, you know, just the wins-loss record. Obviously, that's not great either, but Chicago are better than that. Chicago will punish the kind of mistakes that the Diamondbacks made today. So we need to not make them. We not need to muck around with playing defense. We need to turn our double plays, rely on the guys we know we can rely on, but at the same time, everybody else who isn't Geraldo Perdomo in that infield needs to step up. I can imagine that we're probably going to see Josh Naylor a lot more at first base with Pavin Smith as the DH in this series against Chicago, rather than Pavin at first and Naylor as the DH, like we've seen a couple of times in Miami. I think that potentially changes how your defense has to evolve. Whoever's on the mound is going to have to be much more switched on, because Naylor is slower to cover the bag than Pavin will be, because he's just a bigger guy, big dude. But at the end of the day, we're going to be having to deal with probably one of the hottest hitters in baseball right now, and it's going to be a good little who's hot hitter in baseball right now battle between Justin Turner and Corbin Burns. But if we're not on our game and he's heading towards the gaps, he's hitting fly balls, and we're not getting to them, we're not covering the territory effectively, we're not mentally switched on, the Chicago Cubs are a team that can and will punish you. So, yeah, that'll be fun in kind of a gut-clenching, teeth-grinding kind of way, especially since an 11 a.m. start time for all 3 games in Arizona means 7 p.m. first pitches for me here in London. So I think some anxiety tacos and a cup of tea are going to be in order for the game day grub. And of course, I will have a series debrief podcast the moment that the final out comes in from Chicago for you on Sunday night. We're going to wrap up this episode there. I want to say thank you very much to everybody for listening. Thanks very much to the friends of the show over at the Home Run Travel Company. Less than a month to go now until myself and the rest of the Home Run Travel Company tour group jet off to the West Coast to take in some sun, some super chill California, West Coast, Seattle vibes, because we're going all over the place, and just, hit a bunch of ballparks. Be tourists. Be basic, generic tourists. I apologize in advance for all of the comments I'm going to make to everybody else in these ballparks where I'm hyping up the Diamondbacks. I regret nothing. It's very much going to give Idiot Abroad vibes, I think. Anyway, yeah, if you're one of my listeners in the UK and you want to see some baseball for yourself, there's still time to book yourself on. West Coast, East Coast, wherever you want to go. Home Run Travel are your guys. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Please remember to go and follow us wherever you're watching or listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We can be found on every platform. Make sure that you click whatever heart, subscribe, star, bell to make sure you never miss an episode of the T-Backs podcast. Make sure you follow us as well over on social media. We are at T-Backs Podcast on most platforms. I have been your host at GB Diamondback. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.